Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Jen Sorensen, and today I am going to my freezer and pulling out some meatloaf that I made. I made a big batch because when things get crazy, I like to have stuff in my freezer. And this is one of the ones that I go to. I have them, I make these mini loaves. You can see it's like literally the size of my palm, which is not that big, my hand, not that big. And I wrap them individually in foil, and then I put them in this bag. And I literally, every time I make a batch, this bag has been around for a number of uses. And I will literally cook it on the foil, but I find that that's the easiest way to actually make and store the meatloaf in the freezer. And now my hands are really cold. I'm gonna unwrap these, put them in the oven at around 400 degrees or so, because that's what I'm roasting some cauliflower at, so why not? And I will show you how I make it right now, and then I'll check in with you really soon with how it tastes. And we'll do a final taste test together just to kind of see how it came together and especially how it tastes reheated. Yes, you are in the right place. And yes, we do have a blender with gluten-free pretzels in it. And yes, we are making meatloaf. But what the heck are we doing? Well, I have found that these pretzel sticks, when I puree them up, make the best breadcrumb for my meatloaf and breadcrumb in general. So I'm gonna doctor them up a tad. This is one of my favorite seasonings from Trader Joe's. I'm gonna add a little bit in, not too much because this has salt in it and the pretzels have salt too. Then I'm gonna add just a little bit of parsley in here. We can add more later, and we will to our meatloaf mix, but I just want a little bit in there. So let me put this on and pulse this up. This is gonna be way too loud for you. So we'll get this going and then I'll bring you back here to make the meatloaf. Okay, I just pulsed this up and you can kind of see I didn't do it all the way because I like a little bit of chunk in there, but it just really makes a nice difference to what we're making. And what I also like to do is I just keep a container of these crumbs and I'll use them to bread chicken and other stuff. Really good option when you are looking to make something gluten-free, or you can use non-gluten-free pretzels and do the same thing. All right, we are ready to get our meatloaf started. Normally, I use a meatloaf mix from the grocery store, but they didn't have it, so I'm making my own. And I'm gonna give you ratios for this in the video, but I will do instructions for 1 pound of meat in the description below as I talk through this. So I'm making a very large batch. This is ground pork, by the way. You can use any meat you'd like for this. Get my bag over here. I have, so this is 1 pound of pork, and it's usually about 25% pork. I am gonna add in ground sirloin. So I'm gonna add in 2 pounds of beef, and yes, I have gloves because I hate touching raw meat. And you can do the same too. So I'm gonna have 2 pounds of ground beef. So it's about 50% ground beef. You can do 100% ground beef if you want. This is sirloin and it's 97% lean, so that it's a bit leaner because that pork is not exactly the leanest. And that's also why, get that bag out of here. Also why I only like it at 25%. And then I have some ground veal, which, you know, I know some people are not fond of veal. We'll save that for another time, but this is actually about 1.25 pounds here. So, but it's, in general, you want about a 25% ratio there. So I'm just gonna kind of get this going just a touch, although I probably should have added a few more things here before I start manhandling the meat. So why don't I do that? I'm gonna take 1 glove off and then I will put 1 on after so I can handle the ingredients. First up, we need breadcrumbs. Now, normally I don't measure. I don't. But for you, I'm going to. So let's see, let's see what a 1/4 cup looks like. So 1/4 cup, I think, is good for about 1 pound of meat. So we're gonna do 4 of these. So we get about a cup of breadcrumbs, and in this case, pretzel crumbs. So let's see. I might add just a tiny touch more. I don't measure, as you can see. Now I have 3 eggs left in my carton. Normally I would do 1 egg per pound. So I'm just gonna use up what I have left because that's what we do. So if you're using a pound of meat, you want 1 egg, you want about a 1/4, about a half a cup or so, maybe a little bit more of your breadcrumbs. Get rid of that. Now I'm going to add in, and this is probably kind of my secret ingredient. Use any brand, but I like to add in tomato puree. This is my moisturizer. This is what I use instead of milk, where a lot of people use milk. And so this is 24 ounces right here. I've probably used about 16 ounces. So about 4 ounces of, or a 1/4 cup per pound of meat. Now I'm gonna add in, and I'm just gonna add in some garlic here. I think I'm gonna polish this off. They didn't have the good stuff when I was at the grocery store, or when I did my grocery order, so they sent me this instead. The wrong item. That probably does not sound good, but I ordered real garlic and I got this, so I'm just using it up since I have it. So I'm not a fan of this brand either. Okay, let's get that in there. So that's, 1 or 2 cloves of garlic. You decide. Then I'm gonna add a little bit of seasoning. I'm gonna add in some parsley. You can add in whatever seasonings you want. I'm not gonna add any salt, I don't think, because the pretzels have enough. And I'm gonna add in just a little bit more of that umami seasoning. Mushrooms are like one of my favorite fruit vegetables. So you can add an Italian herb mixture, whatever you want. I am going to add in some grated Parmesan cheese, or as we like to call it in my family, shaky cheese. This is shaky cheese, and that bag is bothering me. Okay, I'm gonna put on another glove to mix this, just because I hate the feeling of meat on my hands. So we're gonna do this, and we're just gonna get in and mix it. The reason I'm gonna wait to add the cheese is my mother has a dairy allergy. She's coming over for dinner with my father tonight. They only live about 1.5 miles away from me. And we like to split meals right now, especially as we're not dining out as much. All right, let's kind of really get in here and mix this up. Uh-oh, I'm spewing things. So my secret, you're getting a couple secrets in here. The first is the pretzels, and the second is the tomato sauce. The tomato sauce within is actually gonna make this really, really moist. And then the pretzels are gonna add a nice flavoring. And if you're gluten-free like I am, because it's an allergy, not a dietary preference, then it's really going to add a little something to, oven's ready. I have it preheated at 375, just in case you're wondering. So I'm trying to just mix all this together. I'm just squishing it. I don't want to overwork it, but I can see that there are many parts that things are not incorporated. So yeah, I have a gluten allergy. It triggers my IBS. And then my mother has a dairy allergy. And that, both of us, it makes us sick. So I'm actually thinking I need a little bit more tomato sauce here. Ooh, that's not good. Okay. I sanitized the counter right before I started using this. We're gonna use this entire thing, so it's fine that it has my meat hands. Okay, so we're now up to about, I would say, 18 ounces. And it's gonna just depend on your mixture, how your breadcrumbs take. And I can just tell by looking at it, the color. See, I've got little bits of breadcrumb here. So tomato's gonna add a lot of flavor with the moisture factor. I just love it. And this is actually the exact same recipe I use for my meatballs as well. So if you want to try it, you could use with ground turkey, whatever kind of meat you want. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do right now. I have a container, so I love stoneware. Grab a stoneware pan, well loved. I'm going to kind of hand shape a patty here, kind of a little loaf. And this is going to be for my mother. Because she has a dairy allergy, I'm not going to add in I'll add a little bit more for her. I'm not going to add in any form of cheese. That's hers. I'm going to leave that there. And I'm going to need to do this again. Glove off. I just hate the idea of touching ground meat. You don't need to do this. And we're going to add in about half a cup of grated Parmesan cheese there. So, you know, about 1/8 of a cup or a third, depending on, or a quarter, I mean. Maybe 1/8 and a quarter, depending on what you like. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to blend this in. And this is going to help with a little bit of moisture too, and kind of adding flavor and salt. So that's why I don't add a ton of salt, because we've got the pretzels, we've got the cheese, got all that in here. And this is why I like to have my meat ground before all together. Is I don't like how much I'm mixing this, but ooh, and I don't like that little piece of fat there. I'm going to get rid of that. Getting rid of that. It's like a little tender or something. Okay. This is my most requested recipe from my friends. They always want to know what my meatloaf recipe is. And now you're getting it. Okay. We've got a big mess here. Here is one of my favorite pans of all time. Mini loaf pan, and I'm making this big batch because I like making big batches of stuff, but I am starting, and I'm not spraying this or doing anything. There's enough fat in here to really help this kind of just get out. But I'm starting a new job soon, in a couple weeks, so I'm making a ton of freezer meals. Some of them are recipes found online, not my original. As I get some originals, I will film them for you to see how I make them. But I figured why not show you some of these. So I've got that. And these are just going to be individual loaves. I'm not overfilling them because it's going to be one loaf for me, essentially. And, you know, I don't want to overdo the portions. Okay. And then I still have all this meat. So I've got another stoneware pan. I love stoneware. And I'm gonna make some mini individual loaves here. So these are probably 6 to 8 ounces. So I'm just gonna kind of hand shape them and turn them into little loaves. And this is such a great comfort food recipe that, you know, you can make. I love the fact that I can make this and freeze it. I will cook it all the way through, and then I can then end up with, and reheat it in I love my toaster oven. I'll just reheat it on this small stoneware pan, one of these. Easy enough. Okay. Let's see, and I'm keeping my mother's without the dairy separate so that she doesn't get any of the cross-contamination. So it just shows you how you can kind of modify these for different dietary restrictions. You know, you can do whatever you want. You could add some ground cauliflower in here. That would be good. Okay. So let's see. You know, you can make however many you want. You can do a big loaf. I do plenty of big loaves as well. So we're just gonna kind of take what's left and put it in some of these containers as well. Okay. Let's get this out of the way. Into the sink. Next step, we need to top these. So I'm just gonna grab my plain tomato sauce here, and I'm gonna have to get more. But just like a nice thin coating over the top. You can use ketchup. I don't like ketchup. I find it too sweet for this. That's why I just like tomato puree. But again, you can do whatever you want. You can do barbecue sauce, you can do gravy. I just like a little bit of the tomato sauce. I think the acidity and the sweetness of the tomatoes just works really well. Am I gonna get no, I'm gonna need to open another container here. Okay. I have these little palmy, and this tomato puree I have is local from there's a farm delivery service here that delivers different kinds of, and this is a little bit different, but it's just a tomato puree. It'll be fine. Probably not quite as sweet. And I really like to add a good amount of tomato on top. Okay. Because again, this is gonna help with the moisture factor. And you can see why I like to wear gloves for this. Okay. And this will really penetrate. Okie dokie. Honestly, I don't even need gravy with this at all, but you could. I just think it really adds a little bit of something. And then what I personally like to do is I'll shake a little bit of Parmesan cheese on top of the ones with cheese. For me, just to show me exactly which ones have the cheese and which ones don't. So I'm gonna take this one off to the side, just so it doesn't get any contamination. This came out fast. Just a little bit to show that there's some cheese on top. When I've got fresh herbs available, I will add fresh herbs in here. You can modify this, but yeah, let's put this in the oven right now, and then I will show you what it looks like when it's out. All right, and it just got really cloudy out all of a sudden and dark. But anyway, let me grab the single one. This one does not have the Parmesan cheese. You can see that like beautiful little crispiness around the outside. It's just nice and moist, and that tomato aspect just makes this really, really yummy. So I'm gonna let these cool for a little bit, and I'm gonna package them up individually. What I like to do is wrap each one of these up in foil, and then I will put them all in a Ziploc bag and then put that in the freezer. Although we're gonna have a few tonight for dinner, so I'll show you it all plated. All right, I don't wanna tilt the plate too much, but here is the reheated meatloaf from frozen. I didn't microwave it, I didn't thaw it out in any way, but I did make some roasted cauliflower that you can see here. All I did was coat this with a little bit of spray olive oil and salt. That's it, because I don't like black pepper personally. I'll sometimes use crushed red pepper, but all I did was then put the meatloaf loaf on a pan and baked it about 400 degrees for maybe half an hour to 45 minutes. It's gonna depend on what 400 degrees means for your oven, if it's convection, anything like that. I was probably closer to about 40 minutes, so a little bit on the longer side. Let's taste it, see what notes we get. It's hot. Just out of the oven. All right. I get that meat note front and forward, but I definitely get the tomato flavor. And I'm talking to you, this is something I make all the time. I think I needed a little more tomato actually in this version. It's not as tomato heavy, so you can adjust it. And I could have used a little bit more of the Parmesan, but overall, maybe a little salt. It just depends. Sometimes when you freeze things and unfreeze them, I really, really, really highly recommend using the pureed pretzels as your binder instead of just regular breadcrumbs. It just adds something. And then I recommend using the tomato sauce instead of milk or water to add that moistening agent to the breadcrumbs. So I hope you like this. This is the exact same recipe that I use for meatballs that you can try as well. Let me know down below if you make this or if you have questions. Otherwise, I hope this inspired you to make something delicious or beautiful. Until next time, I will see you real soon. Have a fantastic day.